Yes, yes, we can see
Okay.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, Dino, the virtual stage is yours.
Okay. Perfect. So thank you very much, everybody. Apologies for this delay in setting up the presentation. My name is Dino Dell'Accio. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of the United Nations Pension Fund. I'm based in New York. And today I'm honored and pleased to be with you virtually to present our blockchain-based application for digital identity and proof of life. So this is the structure of the presentation. Is about the journey that we went through from 2017, 2018, when I was appointed Chief Information Officer of the UN Pension Fund, and then in 2021, when we went live with this solution. So I'm going to go through the original problem and the solution. I'm going to give you details about the application, the architecture, the technology, and also some of the most recent issues that we are trying to address vis-a-vis potential risks that are presented by post-quantum computing, and also most importantly about assurance and certification benefit and evolution. So very few words about myself. I've been with the United Nations for 25 years. I'm currently the Deputy Chief Executive. I started this new assignment in October, at the beginning of October, in the pension fund. Before, I was the Chief Information Officer for almost 7 years. And prior to that, I was in the United Nations in a different domain. I was the Chief ICT Auditor of the UN for several years. So this is a little bit about me. About the pension fund as a whole, we are the pension fund of the entire United Nations system. We now, this slide is relatively obsolete. We now have 25 member organizations. We have a market evaluation that went beyond $100 billion. We are fully funded, and we serve approximately 230,000 individual between staff, employees, active participants, as well as beneficiaries and participants that reside across the globe in more than 192 countries. At the beginning of the presentation, just to give you an adequate context, I presented and I created this one-pager just to give you a sense exactly of what is my story about. So again, as already indicated, we are an UN interagency entity, so we serve the entire system. The solution that I'm presenting is specifically a digital identity solution for proof of life that supports approximately more than 70,000 retirees that reside in more than 190 countries. The model that we have adopted to create this solution is SSI, Self-Sovereign Identity Verifiable Credential. The technology is a private and permission blockchain, plus biometrics and facial recognition, plus artificial intelligence, plus geolocalization. The platform that we have adopted is Hyperledger Indy and Aries, with the libraries Aries. Vis-a-vis personal identifiable information, I included this element because throughout the years, I've been making this presentation in many domains, and this question always comes first, like, well, how do you handle private data? And I give this answer ahead of time. The private data is specifically also the biometric profile is only stored on the user device. So therefore, there are no personal identifiable information stored on the blockchain, and we do not store outside of the user device this data. We don't transmit this data. As a former IT auditor, as a former ISO auditor, I'm particularly obsessed with the issue of assurance, especially when using emerging technologies such as the blockchain, such as artificial intelligence, such as biometrics. And therefore, I try, wherever possible, wherever available, to certify the solution with international standards. And specifically, I achieved certification on ISO 27001 that pertains to information security, ISO 42,001, we are the first UN entity that achieved this certification, which is on the responsible use of artificial intelligence. ISO 30107-3, it's not a certifiable standard, but it's an attestation pertaining to the testing of the capability of a biometric system to withstand deepfakes or presentation attack detection. And finally, also, we submitted on a regular basis. We are doing this on a quarterly basis because NIST offers this free service of benchmarking algorithms for biometric recognition. FRBT stands for facial recognition vendor test. We also submitted the application to ethics audit, algorithmic audit, and we got some important awards from the UN Secretary General on innovation sustainability, from the Government Blockchain Association for Social Impact. This is an association based in Washington, D.C., here in the States, and from the British Blockchain Association that gave us an award at their scientific conference early this year. And we were also a case study. That is a case study published by Gartner, but it's available only to those who have a subscription with Gartner itself. Please, if I only see my slide, if at any point there is any question or anyone that would like to make a comment, interrupt me, and I would be more than happy to address that, unless you want to do at the end of the presentation. And also, I apologize because the video, unfortunately, it's not enabled, so you can only hear my voice. This is an infographic in one page. This was something that was created by the British Blockchain Association. As I alluded to, I presented their scientific conference early this year, and they were very kind in offering us this infographic where in one page, they included all the key elements of our solution, from the challenge on the left side to the security compliance in the center, to the impact and benefit on the bottom, and on the core feature and deployment and adoption characteristics on the right side. Our partner. So the entity that actually created, developed the application itself, the application that you will see our client, our user can download on their smartphone, on their device, is actually the United Nations International Computing Center, which is an entity that has the mandate to provide IT services to the entire UN community. So we have been working very closely with them, and they are supporting and maintaining the application and the solution itself. So this is really the problem, if you will. Sorry that for some reason the titles are not appearing in the slide. Maybe there is some issue of compatibility with the file. So this is the problem. The problem was that for 70 years, the UN Pension Fund has determined that those more than 70,000 UN retirees and beneficiaries living across the globe in more than 190 countries were still alive by using a paper-based form that was transmitted through 190 postal services, asking these beneficiary retiree to sign it and return it through the same means, the same 190 postal service. And the problem, as you can appreciate, is that many times this form got lost or were delayed, or there were some errors. And unfortunately, by the end of the fiscal year, the UN Pension Fund did not receive that signed form. By rules and regulation, the pension fund is obliged to suspend the payment with inevitable issue. But overall, now one of the overarching issues was our governing body, basically the General Assembly, composed of representatives of 193 countries, had been always questioning the UN Pension Fund as how can you prove there is no fraud in this manual process? And therefore, this was a negative proof. And as you know, proving a negative is impossible. Hence, the solution of proving a positive by virtue of using these combined technologies: biometric facial recognition, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and geolocalization. And I'm going to illustrate how this worked. So fundamentally, with the old process that we had forms, as I alluded to before, we were sending over through all the retirees every year. So this process, because of the manual nature, require almost a year to be completed. We completely reverse the direction of this process by enabling our client to download the app from the App Store, both Apple as well as Android, go through an onboarding process with our call center that will verify the identity, they confirm that they were indeed the legitimate beneficiary of our pension, and then proceed with the proof of life through this application. So the way that we broke down this problem was that we had to provide 4 proofs. A proof of identity at the very beginning, authentication every after, proof of existence, because indeed the main goal of this application is to confirm that the right individual receiving the payment is still alive, proof of transaction, and proof of location. In addition to that, of course, we also had to address some requirements vis-a-vis security, reliability, transparency, accountability, and attribution. So all elements of a problem of making the solution trustworthy, secure, and reliable. And of course, also being part of the United Nations, we also had to be mindful and demonstrate alignment with overarching strategy, such as the strategy of the Secretary General on New Technology, which was issued in 2018, other reform initiatives such as the UN 2.0, the Common Agenda, the Eye for Good, but most importantly, the Sustainable Development Goal, in particular, the target 16.9 that pertains to legal identity. So how do we do it? We do it by using the technology that I alluded to before: blockchain, biometrics, AI, and geolocalization. Blockchain to create an immutable and independently auditable and traceable triple entry distributed ledger of all the transactions of the entire life cycle of the process, from the identification of the user to their submission of proof of life. Why blockchain? I included a couple of slides because sometimes and oftentimes I've been presenting this solution in academia, and there is always this questioning about why blockchain versus an encrypted distributed database and so forth and so on. So I'm not going into the details because I'm sure that the audience of today is very well versed about the importance of blockchain and the fact that blockchain is not a solution to every problem. So it's not about using a trendy technology, but very specific, important reason, because it has no central control, because we can decide, being this a permission and private blockchain, who can participate, because it supports privacy vis-a-vis zero knowledge proof and tamper-proof ledger, and because it creates an immutable ledger. Again, as a former auditor, very important for me, having corroborating evidence that cannot be tampered with. Also, again, for the academia, I made reference to specific research paper that talks about the decision model for blockchain. And so in here, I often included also this slide. Moving on, in addition to blockchain, we use biometrics. Biometrics to provide a proof of authentication, a proof of life, based on facial recognition, as I alluded to at the beginning, stored only on the user device to authenticate user, with the events recorded on blockchain, not the private data, not the biometric data. And because of using biometrics, because we're using facial recognition, in 2023, I became very concerned about the potential risk of deepfakes. Hence, the benchmarking of the application vis-a-vis the specific ISO standard that provides this 3 level of testing in order to demonstrate whether or not and how a solution is capable of withstanding presentation attack detection of deepfakes. And finally, the geolocalization, because in certain cases, we also need to capture this information when our beneficiary elected to receive payment in local currency in order for us to apply cost of living adjustment. The application itself, it's a screenshot of the app itself from the App Store. These are some screenshots of the application itself. These are the ratings and the review that over the years, again, we went live in January 2021. At the beginning, definitely, we did not have this level of ratings, but over the years, we were able to basically gain quite a bit of support, and now we are 4.7 out of 5. Architecture and design. Again, for those who would like to drill down into the details of the application, we use, of course, the web 3C standard on DIDs. We use a security decision model that was predicated on registered identifier, multiple registration, blockchain account pairing, dual resolution, based on the decision model of authentication authorization. These are slides that I have borrowed from the Linux Foundation, the Hyperledger group, vis-a-vis the explanation. Again, I'm sure that with this audience, I don't need to go into the details of the three elements of the SSI and the role of the blockchain, as well as the verifiable credential vis-a-vis the issuer, the holder, and the verifier. Is there a question? I see something popping out in the chat.
No, there is no questions yet,
Okay.
so you can continue.
Okay, perfect. So this is the concept view of our enrollment process. So we have depicted how people go, as I alluded to before. They go either through the member organization, if they are already, if they are still a staff member that is about to retire. So we capture their biometric. We conduct their enrollment through their member organization. And instead, if they already retired, they go through our call center. So this is the process, and this is the conceptual view of the actual confirmation, where our user, the beneficiary, using their phone, being recognized by the application, they confirm they're still alive, and this is how updates our system, because the confirmation goes also to our ERP system. But the event, again, is first validated vis-a-vis the public key, the public address of their agent or their phone, and then it's confirmed that indeed someone in a certain time, in a certain location, on a certain day, confirmed that they're still alive. And these are the components. We have a web-based administration site, and we have, again, the mobile application that our user can download on their phone, and we have the blockchain platform. The technology, as I alluded to before, out of this, we use Hyperledger Indy, which is the framework of the Hyperledger that's specifically dedicated or intended for decentralized identity with the Aries library. Now, this is a slide that I included in my presentation since the beginning of this year, because I started, again, as a former auditor, obsessed about threats, about risk, about making sure that the application, the solution maintained its reliability, trustworthiness, started to be concerned about a specific issue that is probably not yet a reality, because post-quantum computing, vis-a-vis who you talk to, may be a reality 3 years from now, maybe it can be a reality 5 years from now, 10 years, whatever they may be. However, there are issues, and you would see in the following slide, which is represented by the risk of harvest now, decrypt later. And vis-a-vis the fact that we are using a blockchain platform, that we're using a specific implementation of this blockchain, there are certain elements that may be, they are vulnerable to this risk. So here I'm breaking down our solution vis-a-vis the nature of the solution, decentralized identity, based on peer-to-peer interaction, based on traditional cryptographic methods, and vis-a-vis specific identity component that are those of the W3C standard, DIDs, pairwise identifier, verifiable claim, zero knowledge proof. So here I'm now going to repeat again. I assume that the audience today is very well versed on the potential issue and the nature of quantum computing, the timeline concern, and the vulnerability vis-a-vis the current asymmetric encryption, RSA, ECC. The component, I apologize, I see that the format of the slide is not well rendered here, so I apologize for the font. But basically, I started to break down the element of our solution vis-a-vis its critical component. So there are issues vis-a-vis the digital signature compromise. There are potential issue about DLT security, about the vulnerability of zero knowledge proof, and about the validity, the long-term validity of the credential that we are managing and supporting. So I approach Thomas, Sedey. I'm sure that you are very familiar with the representative of Hyperledger Decentralized Trust. And I start asking them for material, for support about how can we start to protect ourselves vis-a-vis, again, the threat of our harvest now, decrypt later. So I received this document from them that speaks about the DLT quantum threats analysis. And here, as a former auditor, I started to elaborate some element to chart a path to a due diligence. What can we do? What should we do to migrate our current cryptographic primitives to a cryptographic such as those approved recently by NIST, such as lattice-based or a post-quantum resistant type of cryptography. So looking at percentage of DID they're using post-quantum signature, zero knowledge secret quantum resistant level, key rotation frequency, quantum key distribution penetration and node-to-node communication. And here are also the recommended approach from best practices. Rapidly replace the cryptographic algorithmic, implement both classic and post-quantum method, probably, again, be realistic in adopting a hybrid approach in the transition period, try to follow a defense in-depth approach and try to, of course, future-proofing the solution itself. Moving on, again, going back, you will see that this is a recurrent theme vis-a-vis my presentation, is the fact that I'm constantly concerned about making sure that our stakeholders feel confident that the application is reliable, is secure, is trustworthy. And hence, although as of today, there is not yet an ISO certifiable standard for blockchain, I use the ISO standard that are available. I'm a former ISO auditor, specifically I'm an auditor of ISO 27001. So the first certification that I obtained is the ISO 27001. I also recently, we upgraded and we complemented that certification with the 27701, which is an extension of the 27001 on the personal identifiable information, on privacy protection. Again, this is one of the most recent certification, which we're very proud. We are the first UN entity, the entire UN system in achieving the ISO 42001 on artificial intelligence, because we have embedded a component in our biometric algorithm to prevent and detect potential deepfakes. And now we are about to conduct with a third-party vendor that is accredited to conduct this testing, the 30107 on presentation type detection, aka deepfakes. So the point here is that vis-a-vis AI, we are dealing in our application with a one-to-one verification. And therefore, we are trying to fight AI with AI, basically meaning we are trying to use the power of discriminative AI against the generative AI, basically the capability that the ill-intended actor may use to generate synthetic media, in our case, synthetic and artificially generated images. In obtaining the ISO 42001 certification, we basically had to document the process of explaining how the black box works. So not just to say what goes in the system, the data input, not just say what comes out of the system, the data output, but also what happened in the biometric algorithm that we have created and what kind of checks are conducted in order to confirm the validity of the image on the other side of the phone. And therefore, also be mindful of the fact that, as you can see from the technology that I indicated as part of our solution, blockchain or biometric or AI or quantum, whatever that may be, no one technology is used in isolation. So we became very mindful of the conversions, of the interaction, of the fact that even if you're using into the extreme level of isolation application, at least you have some sort of a legacy system, such as in our case, our ERP system, to deal with, because you end up exchanging certain data. But the concern, the threats, the potential risk, given the novelty of this technology, is compounded when you are using more than one new emerging technology, such as, for example, AI and blockchain, AI and biometric, and so forth and so on. So This is some references to algorithmic assessment that we conducted. This is the periodic assessment benchmarking that NIST conduct for free to all the entities that submit a biometric algorithm to them. This is the cybersecurity assessment, the control domain. This also is a self-assessment that we did as part of our preparedness for the ISO 27701 on data privacy, personal identifiable information. And these are some of the benefits. I'm going to go very fast because, unfortunately, I started late. I don't want to hold you longer than what is the time allocated to me. And I also want to give, if there are any questions or comments. We, of course, reduce significantly all the paper that we were sending and that we were printing and that we were carving, both physically as well as logically. We reduced significantly the manual verification, very labor-intense verification of the signature that before they were conducted by our staff members. We also reduced a single point of failure because, of course, with the different nodes distributed and decentralized, we are able now to use and benefit on decentralization nature of the blockchain. And we also evolved. For example, after a couple of years of implementation, we realized that certain parts of the world, some of our users did not have the ability of possessing or owning a modern smartphone that they would have the hardware security model that they would be capable of storing in encrypted form their biometric. So we realized that we had unintentionally created a digital divide. So we are just about now, after testing the solution, we are about to install kiosks in the local offices of the United Nations where we detected that there are these instances of inability to have an adequate smartphone. And basically, we're installing iPad in the office of the UN, where once a year, our local retiree can go and conduct the proof of existence. Another evolution of the solution was that the UN at large, when we went live, they realized that we had created a digital identity for when people live in the organization. So they decided to adopt the same technology, the same approach to create a UN digital identity for all the staff members that are actually still in the workforce, that are actively working in the UN. So this already, there are 6 UN entities that are working on this platform, and there are different use cases that have been implemented. And as I alluded to at the beginning, we also receive some important recognition. The award of the UN Secretary General, the Government Blockchain Association. This is myself, again, apology for the slide that doesn't render very well. When at the British Blockchain Association early this year, a scientific conference, and this is the Gartner case study. And this is an article published by the Investment and Pension, a professional publication, recognize our effort. I showed this slide early May of last year. I presented the World Summit of Information Society in Geneva, and I was pleased to have with me on stage, for those who know more about the history of the blockchain, you will recognize Scott Stornada, who is one of the 2 co-inventors, together with Stuart Haber, of the blockchain technology itself. So Scott is a big fan of the blockchain uses in domain that other than crypto. So I was very pleased and very honored to have him with me. There are a lot of lessons learned because we went live, as I told you, in 2021 during the core of the COVID period. So some of the challenges that we had, of course, not foreseen. So many elements for lesson learned that we have gained throughout the process. But I'm stopping here. I thank you for your patience with my delay in connecting. And if there are any questions, either now, online, or offline, please feel free to connect with me. The QR code is the link to my LinkedIn account. So whoever wants to continue this conversation, I'll be very happy to engage. Thank you, Sergey. The floor is back to you.
Dino, thank you so much for the great presentation. One question.
Sure.
What a very generic one, but for such a large organization as yours, what was the biggest bottleneck for the application? So what was the biggest problem you met?
Well, listen, look, the biggest problem was at the very beginning. First and foremost, by considering that we are a pension fund, the primary, if you will, clients of our organization are people, the demographics is people that are relatively advanced in their age. Not all of them, because of course our clients are also those who are still working, so relatively young. But a good portion of our client is relatively advanced with age. And so some of them are not, let's say, digitally comfortable with using smartphone, with the concept of digital identity. So at the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism, a lot of fear. When people heard the blockchain, they immediately interpreted the blockchain as a synonym of a Bitcoin. And by jumping to Bitcoin, they started to be concerned. We were told that some people thought that we were being responsible in using a technology that was depleting the natural resources, because by thinking about Bitcoin, they thought about proof of work consensus mechanism. There was also concern about the fact that the application used biometrics. So they were concerned about, where is my biometric ending up, and which database can be hacked, can be stolen. So we had to invest a lot in communication, in reassuring. That's why my obsession for the independent ISO certification, in order to show to them, to demonstrate to them that we really apply due diligence in making sure that the application was secure, that we were mindful of their concern, but also to explain the use of the technology. And at the very beginning, we created a lot of manuals, step-by-step guidance, but we realized that people usually don't read the long documents. They don't have the patience, they don't have the time. So we had to really engage in the video. We started to create video, and really the call center, a client survey, they did a great job in little by little answer all the questions, the query, the concern that our client brought up. So it was a relatively long process, but that was the issue of awareness and explanation, explainability was very important.
Well, thank you. That's a great answer. And yeah, the awareness and perception of distributed ledger technologies, and separation it from like cryptocurrencies and different other things is a significant barrier.
Right.
Dino, we have a lot of questions, of course, because your presentation was very informative. But because of these technical issues, we just have to move on. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. We will be reaching out, and if dear audience, if there are any questions, you have the contacts of Dino on the screen. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much, and again, apologies for my delay.
No worries. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.